the ability to say you're like me and I'm like you, that came through football.
You want to feel a part of things, don't you? You want to, and I think team sport in particular is a good opportunity for that. The amazing Sam Holden.
Spent a number of years in academy football, played across the UK. Lucky enough to get a scholarship to a private school for football. Moved over to the States to play, and then for the last 8 years since tapping out of football, I've been working in technology, and for the last year and a bit with my own tech startup, trying to make sports psychology and mindset more accessible to athletes, specifically footballers, through the power of tech. Stable life versus an unstable life, and then the route that you're trying to go through to understand yourself, understand the world, and how the world might see you. Experiences that can be negative that build strength or resilience as you grow older. As soon as you're signed to an academy, every week there's someone that comes in that's trying to take your spot. So from the age of 8, you're seeing other people and you're in a team environment, but you're not getting too friendly with people because you might be taking my contract, I might be taking your contract. That's where the enjoyment might be sapped out of it for young footballers. A reason that we see some mental health issues of people coming out of high performance academies at a young age is because life is football and their identity is football. But because I got ill, it forced my identity to change. My hand was forced in a way that I didn't want.
I don't know about you, but if you've been in situations before where you're not being your authentic self, it's quite draining.
100%. Hello people, welcome back to another episode of Life in Sport, where I'm joined with the amazing Sam Holden. So yeah, it's good to get back in the studio and have someone else to have a great conversation with. So Sam, I'll leave it to you to tell them a bit about yourself, what you do and what you're about.
Okay, I'll leave it high level. So spent a number of years in academy football, played across the UK. Lucky enough to get a scholarship to a private school for football. Moved over to the States to play, and then for the last 8 years since tapping out of football, I've been working in technology, and for the last year and a bit with my own tech startup, trying to make sports psychology and mindset more accessible to athletes, specifically footballers, through the power of tech.
Okay, nice. So I like to start each episode off with a bit of reflection. So I always ask my guests 3 questions. So I'll start with the first one. Tell me one good thing that happened today.
Ooh. Today I got some time to myself to reflect on the week, which in a busy business and busy life is nice to have something just to slow down every once in a while.
Okay, so how did you make that happen?
I made sure that I blocked some time out. It's the weekend, right? Today's a Sunday, so the rest of my team aren't working, which gives me the opportunity to not work for some of today as well. Blocked out some time this morning to make sure that there's no excuses, nothing that could take my mind off of just a little bit of reflection time for me.
How can you repeat and build on that reflection time you're able to give yourself?
I was thinking about this morning actually. It's really timely that we talk about it because I come away from that time feeling a bit more clear mentally. It gives me an opportunity to think things through and stuff like that. So I think what I can do is be better with setting boundaries. There's always going to be more to do in life, especially as a business owner. It's a never-ending list, basically. But putting myself first for a couple of hours of the week at least, blocking out that time on a regular basis, that can mean that I have that opportunity and there's no excuses.
Yeah, I think it's so important to be able to pause sometimes and just to look back. I think this is like such a key thing with when I speak to people. I feel like we need to reflect to look back, but then we need to look back to be able to move forward. So it's like an oxymoron in a way because you're doing two opposites, but you need one with the other sort of thing.
100%. There's a guy who's a mentor of mine who came up on Wall Street in America. So like dog eat dog, Wolf of Wall Street type vibes, right? Where a lot of people act in a certain way to get ahead in life. Anyway, so he moved out of that world into kind of like investment and tech a few years back, and he realised that people in business do like a weekly reflection at the end of the week. What did we do well? Blah blah blah. But they don't do it for themselves. And he was really passionate of telling me about this thing that he does, which is like the CEO of self. So you got a CEO of your business, but what if you treated yourself like a business in some way, where you set yourself some goals, you reflect on it? And I was like, wow, that's a really interesting position of self-care. It's like you would take care of your business, you would take care of watering your plants and all of these things, but how do you water yourself? Not in that way, obviously. But I found it really interesting in terms of like a different perspective on not just being on autopilot, trying to follow your goals in life, but zooming out every now and again and going, what have I done well? What haven't I done so well? Focus on the controllables, the choices that you've made. So the next week, you're better. And for me, it's been brilliant.
So what does the business of Sam Holden look like?
It looks like, at the moment, we've just hired a couple of people in my actual business, Ebb. So for the first time in probably 18 months, I've got more free time. I've had to, another self-reflection, I've had to get used to having more free time, which is a weird concept to talk about, where I didn't really know what to do with myself, to be honest with you. I kind of forgot what I was interested in my hobbies because I've been that busy. So I've been rediscovering recently what I'm curious about outside of the business, which is nice, and especially in a city like London where there's everything here. I come from a really small town in Bristol where you've got fields, you've got a cafe and a pub, and that's about it. So in London, rediscovering my curiosities has been really good. But the business of me, it looks like someone that's trying to grow, trying to help myself because I want to help others through technology.
Amazing. So it's got me thinking, like, because this ties in really nicely to an area I wanted to talk about. So obviously you were in the Beyond Football show, and a lot of your conversation was about identity and like identity as, you know, you're athletic, and I feel like identity is such a big part of, well, it's who we are, aren't we? Like, it goes without saying.
Yeah.
But so I mean, it's easy to ask about your identity when you played football and your identity like as an athlete, and you know how your identity evolved. But what's your identity now? Because especially if you're saying you're on the path of discovering new things, new interests, new hobbies, and now that you have more time.
Yeah, I think I'm blessed in a way that compared to other business founders, I've been through this identity journey with sports, and I can kind of apply those learnings into business. Whereas a lot of business founders, their identity gets wrapped up. They are the business is them. If the business has a bad day, they have a bad day, etc. That's true to a certain extent, but like, my identity now is one where I knew that I had to pour myself into the business, all of my time, all my energy and effort, and to a certain extent I still do. But allowing the other pillars of my life, which are family, friends, interests, travel, learning, being out in nature, which for me, growing up in the West Country, is an important thing, is finding a balance between those. And it links back to what we were talking about earlier of like zooming out, taking some time on a weekly basis. And for me, I'm an obsessive person, so my calendar to other people looks crazy, but my calendar has like free time blocked out in it, so I can explore and live life outside. So for me, I've tried to manage the identity piece by artificially or proactively creating certain times in my diary to be a different person, to be a different side of me, not different person. So when I'm at work, I'm founder, CEO, or whatever hat I'm wearing. Then outside of work, no hats needed, just living life. Like, what am I interested in? Do I want to read something? Do I want to listen to a podcast? Do I want to speak to a friend, or whatever it may be? I'm quite loose with identity. I've tried to just live by like certain values or aphorisms. So curiosity, passion, those types of things. But if someone was to say like, write it down on a piece of paper, I'm someone that my identity is attached to like self-discovery and helping other people. It's like those two things. They're the things that make me tick.
And they kind of branch out into your personal self and your professional self as well.
Yeah. That will probably get into it, but like our business is there to help people feel more confident, to be more resilient, to be more focused. It's performance improvement for athletes, but it's self-improvement, self-discovery as well. We've got a really big opportunity to help a lot of people starting out in sports, but there's opportunities outside of sports as well, because the mind isn't just for an athlete, it's for everyone, right? It's for the whole person. So as the founder and CEO, and a first-time founder and CEO, I'm quite young as well, I know that for the business to do well, I can't get in its way, which means I need to keep learning. There's new things every day that I have to do or understand, so the better that I can do that, the more opportunity that we have of helping people. So yeah, the personal and the professional for me is quite blended, but I like that because I've had jobs previously where the day work has felt like a chore, and even things now that are hard in the job, I still have some sense of enjoyment because we're doing something that's really cool and helping people.
Okay. So before we get into your business and what you do, why you do it, and how you started it, let's get into you and into your personal journey of football and of discovery and of growing up. Okay. So first of all, let's just simple. Where did this passion for football come from? How did it start?
I come from a very sporty family. So my mum did like athletics, track and field. My dad played football. My stepdad played football and cricket. So I just remember my childhood was going to the local park, playing football, playing cricket, playing rugby, going to watch. I grew up in Yorkshire for the first few years, so going to watch Huddersfield Town play football, going to watch Man United with my dad. So I think it came from just seeing how everyone enjoyed it. If you go to a football match, the whole crowd is really involved. If you go to the local park and play football, everyone's having a bit of fun. So I think it first started with fun, and then discovered that I was quite good at it. So that combination of it was a fun thing, and I was okay at it. It kind of like ignited something in me to want to keep going, and either keep enjoying it or keep getting better.
Okay, so what made you discover that? Okay, I am quite good at this. Like, what was it? What you were told, or was it what you felt when you were playing? How did that aspect of playing football come about?
It's a good question. I think when I first realised that I was good was I would be asked to play up a year. So I'd be like, no one else in the team's been asked to play up, and this is for like our local amateur team, so I must have been 6 or 7 playing the year up. And I did that at a tournament, and it felt really good, and I got player of the tournament. So I was like, kind of realising that I don't know, because it's such a young age, so I look back at it now with my perspective and the wording that I'd use now, but at that age I just remember I must be quite good, I'm enjoying playing football, and people are saying, I heard parents saying, he's a good player, this, that and the other. So you don't really get that outside of sports as a kid, do you? You don't really get people going, he's great at reading poems or whatever it might be.
It's true.
So I think that was in some way maybe a bit addictive at that age, but that was before any like academies or anything like that.
Okay, and I think as a child as well, and I think as a child especially, but even in adulthood, with whatever you're doing in life, you want acknowledgement, don't you? You want to know that you're doing something well, or that you're, whether it's something professionally or whether it's just you're a nice person, you want that acknowledgement. It feels good. Like, so obviously as a child, I mean, that acknowledgement must have been huge for you.
I think so. And but my parents, I think, tried to like play it down.
Keep you grounded.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the right thing, to be honest with you. So because my mum would, I'll come off, my mum or my stepdad or my dad would be like, you gave your all. They didn't say that you played really well, which I think is an important piece of like wording. They won't go like, oh, you played well. They'd be like, well done, you gave your all. Like they would compliment the effort, not the level of play. So that made me, I've seen all of them work really hard in what they do for work. So that for me was like, oh, you have to work hard, and then enjoyment comes from working hard. But the compliments you get from other people, coaches or other parents, would be like, oh, he's a good player. So that felt good because I wasn't used to getting that, if that makes sense, at home.
Yeah. No, of course, it's like it's a foreign concept from your home life, and I think going back to, I think the key word of today is going to be like identity. Like going back to like our talk about identity, like I think especially when we're young as well, agree or disagree with me, but our if you're fortunate enough to have a good stable family life, I think that your parents, your siblings, they become a key part of your identity. And then when you have like people speaking to you and saying, oh, you've done this well, and speaking to you from a different angle than what you're used to, then it's like I don't know, it's like a new branch growing essentially.
Yeah, I think so. The age that we're talking about now, I was like 6 or 7, and now that we're kind of talking about, I've not really thought about this before, but like I saw people idolise footballers from a young age, and then when I got told that I was good at football, that probably went, wow, like I can be one of these people that people idolise, that play on the TV and things like that. My family life grew up from when I was born to when I was 5 in Yorkshire. My mum and dad split when I was 1 year old, and then met my stepdad when I was like 3. We moved down to Bristol, and it was very volatile between my mum, my stepdad, and my dad. In and out of court, things like that. I won't go too much into detail, but in and out of court. And when I was 8 to when I was 15, I didn't have a relationship with my dad, which was court ordered.
Wow.
And that's tough, that's real tough. So at 8, I then got signed for an academy for Bristol Rovers. So go through all of those turbulent things, you're still trying to work out what life is. Football became like an escape route for me, but because it was my escape route, and I didn't really want to go through, or I didn't understand, or I didn't want to talk about the home stuff, it became all of me. So yeah, I completely understand what you're saying there around stable life versus an unstable life, and then the route that you're trying to go through to understand yourself, understand the world, and how the world might see you.
And I think as well as escapism, I mean, like going back to being a child, it's like you want to feel a part of things, don't you? You want to, and I think team sport in particular is a good opportunity for that. And obviously, I know that helped with your transition from up north to
yeah.
That helped your transition of moving and your integration. So how important is that how important was team sport for you in that side of things?
It's like a common language, right? Like obviously from up north to Bristol you speak English, but it's a common interest. And when we talk about identity, like a shared identity, being part of a group, being part of a tribe, whatever it might be, the ability to say you're like me and I'm like you, that came through football. And that was really important for me to feel like I was part of something as a kid, to build friends. And I think it's something that, not to get too philosophical about life right now, but I think it's why communities, especially around sports and fitness, are really starting to explode after COVID, because people are looking for that connection and common values, common interests. So as a kid, it was really key for me to go from up north with a funny accent down to Bristol, people taking the mick out of it, but football and being good at football was like an acceptance thing. They're like, oh, come and play for us, or whatever it might be.
So let's fast forward a little bit into when you got scouted and signed for an academy, and which academy it was, and how that process was for you.
So it's Bristol Rovers. I was playing for a local team, and me and one other guy from that team was scouted. We were 7, I think. You can only sign when you're 8, so we'd be going to training with Bristol Rovers. Then the scout that first saw me came to my house. I remember it quite vividly, actually. It was a really cool moment. Came to our house with the sign-in papers, turned up in a sports car, and my young mind is like, wow, this is the life. Looking back, far from it. But came, signed the papers. At that age, I think it's a year rolling contract. And then must have been just before the summer. And then you go in for like pre-season, end of school holidays. And then from that point onwards, at 8 years old, it's training 2 or 3 times a week. And on the weekend, you might be playing in Bristol, which for me was like the 30-40 minute drive. Or you're travelling across the country at a young age on a bus full of young lads that are 8 to 18, going for away games and stuff to play, which was really cool.
So yeah, let's delve into that a little bit, actually, because you get a lot of these stories of like, Trent Alexander-Arnold has been at Liverpool since he was 8. Saka's been at Arsenal since he was whatever. Miles Lewis-Skelly, etc. Like his academy products. So I think let's talk about let's get that insight of what was life like playing at a professional football club at like the 7 to 12 years old age.
It was...
Like, how did your week look? How did it work? Like, how does that kind of lifestyle look?
The lifestyle, I think, if you're outside of it, it can seem quite luxurious. But maybe, I don't know, because I've only ever been in it. But from 7 to 12, I think it was 2 or 3 times a week. I think it started out 2 times a week, then it went to 3 in terms of training. So that might be Monday, Thursday, it might be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, which would mean that in order to get to train on time, it would be get back from school, change really quickly, have something to eat, maybe in the car, and my mum or whoever it might be would be taking us, and we wouldn't get back till 9-10 o'clock at night. So you get there, you're training for a bit, and I think one thing that I experienced when I was younger, that off camera earlier we were talking about experiences that can be negative that build strength or resilience as you grow older. As soon as you're signed to an academy, every week there's someone that comes in that's trying to take your spot from the age of 8. So from the age of 8, you're seeing other people and you're in a team environment, but you're not getting too friendly with people because you might be taking my contract, I might be taking your contract. So from a young age, there's a bit of like, not distrust, but acknowledgement that we're here for the same reason, we've got the same goals, and what previously was I come to football training to try and get better and have fun is now I'm just trying to get better because I want the contract rather than for you to get the contract. So from a young age it can become, that's where the enjoyment might be sapped out of it for young footballers. But I'd say that's consistent from 8 to 12. The first coach that I had there was he was a disciplinarian, almost like military style, like shout, you guys do it, and I actually quite enjoyed that. You get others that come in that are more, I guess, modern in terms of style of play, developing, etc. So depending on what the coach thinks of you and how you react to their coaching style, it can really influence your experience in that academy. It's not overly individualized to every single player because it's not the easiest for the coach. But you also said, and I think it was a great term, you can't fit a square peg into a round hole and vice versa. So it very much depends on, does your face fit? What's the environment like? And how are you as an individual as to what you get out of it? I just remember from 8 to 12, I was very quiet in that changing room. Whereas at school, I was myself, like not loud, but with friends talking. I was very quiet in that changing room because I was just focused on football, on football, on football.
Yeah, it's a really interesting take, and it sounds quite. It's quite a harsh reality to be exposed to of like survival of the fittest that
Yeah,
like, do you know what I mean? Like obviously we go back to the Stone Age era and animal and wildness and like we could have a whole conversation about that. Obviously we're a lot more in civilization and the lives we live anyway, we're a lot more fortunate. But to be exposed to something like that at 8 to 12 it's quite for something that you're doing for fun initially, it's quite scary. I mean, obviously, as we said, we're lucky people would kill to have our lives in terms of where we live, but in terms of like what you're doing for fun, to be like, oh, it's make or break.
yeah.
When did you realize that the fun side of football started to like, what's the word when you mix the sugar in the coffee and it's not there anymore. I forgot the word.
I can't think of the exact word. It's something like evaporate.
Kind of, yeah.
I know it's not that one, but
yeah. When did the fun start to evaporate? Because I'm sure it wasn't just like one day you come to football and it's not fun anymore. Like,
I know that the coaches when I was at Bristol always tried to integrate fun into their coaching. So there was always an element of fun because they try and create that. For me, the fun then started to be like I mentioned with the away trips, like you'd be sat next to someone. You might this is the back in the day when MP3s were with a thing or like a PSP. So you'd be sat there playing that, but on the pitch I didn't really enjoy it unless I had like some praise, I guess, like scoring a goal, whatever it may be. The enjoyment then comes from outcomes and from success rather than just the pursuit and playing. But I always had a sense of enjoyment from football outside of the academy, so for school teams and things like that. So I think it's tough. When I was probably 9, that's when I stopped finding the whole environment and the whole experience of football fun, I would say.
That's tough, man. Because you know what? I went to an event and called like from the number one fan club, and it was like Marcia Lewis and Miles Lewis Skelly's mum. She talked. Obviously, she's doing this whole thing of supporting parents to support their kids through that whole academy journey, and she talked about how she wanted her son to play for the school team, that they made it to a cup final or something, but she thought it was more important for him to have that experience and play with the school, play with his friends and play for fun than to sack it off and just focus on the academy. So like, it's just I'm with what you said about the enjoying your football outside of that.
Yeah.
So how would you compare your academy football life to your football life, I guess?
Outside of it.
Yeah. I've used to put your academy football life into one word. I know there's many you could describe it, but just one.
As an experience.
Yeah, as an experience, as what you've gone through.
Me personally, it's resilient.
Okay.
Wouldn't say I got loads of enjoyment out of it. I got so many life skills out of it though.
Okay.
Resilience, communication, being able to go into. We'll go for, I guess, from the journey from 12 onwards after.
Yeah.
At 15, 16, I was between 4 different clubs, different cities, different cultures at the club, environments. And if I hadn't have been in an academy setting before with lots of people from different backgrounds, it'd have been quite hard to go into there and to have some form of like understanding of people. So I think there's so many positives that come out of
course,
being part of an academy that outweigh the negatives if they're correctly approached and understood by people. We can kind of get into that, but yeah, I'd say resilience is probably the one.
And then outside the football you played outside of the academy, school or with friends, how would that so academy's resilience, what's the outside of football word?
Enjoyment, I think.
Okay.
I'd say enjoyment.
They're quite two, I wouldn't say they're opposites, but they're two like very contrasting words in terms of resilience, because you're having to deal with a lot of different things. But enjoyment is where you can sort of let loose and just live in that moment, kind of thing.
And I think it's worth saying this is my personal experience.
Of course,
I know a lot of guys that I played with at those academies that found enjoyment and things like that. It's an individual experience. One of the reasons I say resilience is, we'll probably get into it, but at 13 I was playing football in my garden, and my legs stopped working, and I was experiencing almost like stroke-like symptoms. So parts of my body were shutting down. Like really scary experience. I managed to crawl myself from the garden into the lounge, and it was Mother's Day, so all my family were there. They thought I was joking at first, but I was crying. I couldn't move my arms. They sat me up on a chair. They called an ambulance. Luckily, it got there within half an hour. I was in hospital for 8-9 weeks, and what was uncovered was, still don't know the cause to this day, but I had something called meningoencephalitis. So meningitis is quite commonly known. It's the swelling of these areas here and can be really serious. Meningoencephalitis is the swelling of this area, but also of the brain as well. So your brain can be starved of oxygen. Unfortunately, 70% of people that have it, especially at the age that I had it, experience lifelong permanent paralysis or brain damage, or both. And touch wood, to this day I've made a full recovery. But another part of saying resilience is, when I came back out of hospital, I was still part of the academy, but I couldn't walk for more than 100 meters without being out of breath, right? They gave me 6 months to recover, which is nowhere near enough, and I started playing again, and they released me.
Wow.
So what that built was that rejection, after I'd been through so much and built my way back, kind of many mental and physical hurdles, was a big opportunity where it's like a fork in the road. I could have been like F football basically, and this is ridiculous, all of these things, which in some degree it was.
And you would have been completely right. So if you chose to, if that's how you would have reacted, though, it would have been justified.
Don't get me wrong, there was a little bit of that at the start, especially for the first couple of weeks, but it was an opportunity to just to see it as a hurdle or part of the journey, which at that age, that's not necessarily how I thought about it. It was just, I have this dream, I have these goals, these guys are not going to tell me that I can't do it. My mum played a big part of that as well, from like a psychology perspective, helping me with the mental issues. And I think when I left the hospital, I was told I needed a full-time physio and a full-time sports psychologist.
Wow.
To give myself a good chance of getting back into it. And by that time, my mum had split from my stepdad, very low income family. My mum had 2 jobs. We couldn't afford either of those, so she kind of filled the gap as best as she could. And other people supported her as well, which I'm very thankful about. But to get into the business later, like for me, when I think back to the origin of why I'm so passionate about people being able to access sports psychology or performance psychology, it's because I needed it in that moment. There was things that I wanted that we couldn't afford, like whether it be a PlayStation or whatever. But that was the first thing in my life that I needed. I needed sports psychology so that I could get football back, because football was my dream, my goal, my hobby, my social environment, my identity, most importantly, right? I needed that. So for me, like, I know not everyone has to go through such an extreme thing. Sports psychology or performance psychology can be for all of the roller coaster, the ups, the downs, and the average bits as well. But for me, I know that if I saw someone else go through what I went through, and they need this thing, I'm so passionate about trying to help that person to be able to return to sport, return to life, give it their best shot in and outside of football, because I didn't have the opportunity.
I love that. it's such a. I think the fact that you were able to come out of it, although it might not have been a smooth journey, like obviously you're here and you're telling it, and
Yeah.
that's one thing. But in terms of what you actually went through, that was probably a whole different thing. And I think that's just life in general. When once you're telling the story, it's like, wow, that's commendable. You've done so well. But maybe firsthand you don't realize how tough. Whatever, and I'm talking life, not just like whatever setback.
Yeah.
So let's keeping it cool, because I do really want to talk about get into your business and things like that. And I'm so glad you've touched on your passion already, your passion for it and where it comes from. So let's talk about post Bristol Rovers, because obviously you're 14. You've gone through something really. You've gone through a real serious health scare. We're not talking like a little ACL. That's not little, but we're talking something that could be life threatening and life changing.
Yeah.
And then the thing you have to fall back on, which is football, because you talked about that being escapism. You don't have it to fall back on. And then suddenly your identity is challenged, because like suddenly you can't play football, you can't do it, you can't go and you can't be with the boys and whatever. How did that release hit you? Because you're being released for something that's completely out of your control. I mean, I'm sure there's a part of you that's thinking, at least if you played shit, you played shit, and that justifies them not picking you, but you didn't. It was something completely out of your control. How did you deal, if you can remember, like how did you deal with that and things being out of your control at such a young age?
I remember driving back after being released. It was my stepdad, me, and another guy from the team who, like, we went to the same primary school, secondary school. I joined Bristol Rovers and he joined a couple of years later. So like me and him, thick as thieves, good mates. We were at school together, and then we'd be on the journey at Bristol Rovers. And I just remember getting back into the car and being like, I can't cry in front of my mate, but I couldn't talk. And he was like, I'm so sorry. So that was the first thing. It was like there wasn't a disconnect between Bristol Rovers and school, because this guy had seen everything. The point I mean there is like I couldn't go into school and be like, yeah, I quit or anything like that, which I wouldn't have done. But they were joined. They weren't separate, because after I was released, I'd see him every day, and he'd come to school sometimes in his tracksuit if he had to go over to training, and it was like a reminder. So that was really, really tough. And I think for the first month after it, I didn't play football. They released me, I think it was March, so a few months left of the football season. Didn't play for about a month. And then a local team that a few of my friends were playing for were like, why don't you come and like play for us a little bit? And I got my love back by going and playing for them. But I just, for the first month, I was broken. And again, like the people around me, my mum, my stepdad, my dad would have been, but obviously I couldn't see him at the time, were sharing like knowledge and wisdom with me that I wasn't ready to receive. Like, use this as fuel. This will make you stronger. There's more to life. All of these things which I've experienced now. I wasn't ready to receive that, and I went on a bit of a pathway of like being a bit of shit in school. I've not said this publicly before, but I even went to a few Bristol Rovers games with their hooligans, like completely going down the wrong path. I'm going to do this, which was not me at all. But yeah, it was really, really tough. Like going back into school, and I'm not Sam the footballer anymore, So that was an interesting thing to go through. I don't remember all of what I felt. I just remember that first month I was broken. I didn't do much socially. I was in my room, which I think was worrying for my family. And then that first step back into football also coincided with a teacher that I thanked very recently, dragging me out and be like, what are you doing? Like, this is not you. You've got potential. There's more to life than football. these kind of happened in and around the same time, which was great for me. That support system, I know I was very lucky in that. And I was like, actually, yeah, like I've started to enjoy football again. There is more to life. I'm making friends outside of Bristol Rovers. And then the summer came. Started going to the gym every morning. Sometimes it'd be morning and evening. I just found this like fire in me where I was playing local football. I was enjoying it. I was very good at that level. And I wasn't really even thinking about getting back into a pro club. I was just like, I just want to keep getting better and keep enjoying myself. And then a few months later, playing in a game for a local Saturday team. I think it's called the JPL, which is like semi-pro clubs put their teams into this, so that there's like a step between amateur and semi-pro at a young level. So I was playing for a team in that, and we got invited to play against Swindon Town in a friendly. And like I'm 5'8" now, right? I'm not the biggest, but I was 5'8" at 14.
Oh.
So I was playing centre back, and the striker that I was playing against was being scouted by Man U, and I had a really good game.
Locked them up.
Yeah, in the pocket. But usually I was a centre midfielder, so I looked like a ball playing centre half in that game. And after that, maybe like 2 weeks later, found out through the manager that Man U had been in contact with him asking for my parents' details. So like, wow, that's a nice touch. And I came back from school one day in our little apartment. My mum was sat in the living room with a guy with a Man United jacket on, called Vernon Lee, and he introduced himself. So I came to watch you the week after. We'd like to invite you for pre-season.
Wow.
So yeah, it'd gone from, and I've covered a lot of time here in a concise way. Just over a year, it had gone from coming out of hospital, about 18 months really, coming out of hospital, to now being offered a trial at Man U. And that time in between, I'd gone from, I'm never playing football again, football's the worst, like losing my identity, to getting back involved, not being a little shit at school, discovering my love for football again, and now I'm going to the biggest club in the world. So it was a proper roller coaster, and I guess in a lot of ways it was like a new chapter.
Of course, and complete stark contrast of from being released and feeling at the bottom,
Yeah.
to feeling at top of the world, and to especially with the work that you put in, like before, without the aim of it being to get into a club like Man United. So how obviously each football club has a different culture and a different way of being and different ethoses, and you know, we can go on. How obviously, of course, the age group as well. What was different at being at Bristol Rovers from the time you were there to joining Man United and your time through Man United?
Man United was so, like, the professionalism was insane, but I also think like I was 15, so I was at an age where I had more of an understanding of it. So my first time with them was on pre-season camp at a place called Lilleshall, which before St George's was where England would train. It's like amazing setup. And I got picked up by the scout. We then went and picked up, because there was a keeper that I grew up with in Bristol that was signed by United. So he drove us up there. Me and him then were roommates for this pre-season camp. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, coffee, tea, everything laid out, and like, oh, it's unbelievable. But like, for an athlete, you live in like an athlete. And I was so nervous going there, because when I was at Bristol Rovers, we played against Chelsea Academy, and when Portsmouth were in the Premier League, we played against them. Southampton, they were miles ahead of what we were. So I was going there, I was like, wow, these guys are superhuman. And I remember my granddad and my local team coach telling me like they're just human, like, just lads. So yeah, it was the professionalism of the whole setup. From I had training kit, multiple training kits, a tracksuit. They gave me some trainers whilst I was there. So it was. I think you made a point off camera earlier around making people feel included by everyone's the same. So I felt like part of the team from the first day that I got there, even though I was on trial. Um, the level of coaching, the amount of coaches that they had during my first session, you start off with like a rondo, which is you're in a square, there's players around, and people are trying to get the ball off you in the middle. That was 10 times faster than I've ever done anything before, like the speed of reactions and stuff. And I was probably quite visibly nervous, and one of the coaches grabbed me aside and said, like, you're here for a reason, just give it your all, which was something I'd never experienced at Bristol Rovers.
Kind of goes back to what you were saying about your parents and them giving you the compliments based on effort rather than...
Yeah, that's very true. Actually, I hadn't thought about it like that. That's very true. So yeah, like just the professionalism, the level of play that those lads had, in terms of like speed of thought, speed of decisions, it was like insane. It was really, really cool. And I was, to a certain extent, I was holding my own. So
Nice.
like, you could start to gather a bit of confidence and things like that. But I'd say in terms of the differences, United, the culture was very welcoming. There was little to no egos in the team, and when you think of the lads from that age group that have gone on, Dean Henderson, Marcus Rashford, Scott McTominay, all of those guys, none of them had an ego in that team. Like they recruit on skill, yes, but especially because that was Fergie's last season, it was about characteristics. It was a great culture, a great environment. Yeah.
That's, yeah. I'm just like blown away from what you're telling me, kind of thing. I think as well, I mean, obviously you've got the academy categories. Man United, I'm assuming back then they were like Cat 1 and they've got all the kind of funding for staffing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Probably like so much more resources for you down there, and so much, you're probably focusing on things that, I know you probably have access to like analysts and stuff like that compared to like in Bristol Rovers where, yeah, they can put out an academy with age group from 8 to 21, but there's only so much access you can have to things. And
Yeah. I was at Bristol Rovers twice, so from 8 to 14. And at that stage it was academy director, age group coaches, and 2 physios that the whole academy used. 2 physios for the hundreds of players.
And that's the reality of it now with some roles in academies as well. But
100%.
physios for like 60 plus players is insane.
Oh, there was 2 physios for, there would have been an average of like 15 to 18 lads from age 8 to 16. So what's that? 8 times 15. So you're at over 100 players for 2 physios plus trialists as well. So yeah, it was pretty nuts. And then you go to United, and we were classed as under 16s. It's pre-season going into under 16 season. There's like 4 coaches just for that age group, and then you've got physios. I think there was a nutritionist there, but they were like 16s and 18s. So yeah, it was absolutely insane.
You know, so obviously you talked about, we used the term survival of the fittest in Bristol Rovers from like 8 onwards. Was it, how did that compare at Man United? Was there still an element of that, or was it worse, or was it less, or?
It was. So I'm coming at it from an angle of I'm trying to get in, right? So I imagine it's still slightly different for the players that were signed on. But for me, I went there and I knew that if I was going to get signed in this period of the trial that I'm with them, I've got to be better than the guy that's in my position. They would know the reverse. They've got to be better than me. But it was more welcoming than most clubs that I've been at in terms of players
getting to know you, your name, shaking your hand, all of those things. They didn't try and ostracize you or make you not feel like part of the group, and that comes from the coaches, from the academy director, etc. So yes, it was still survival of the fittest, and it gets competitive and heated in training, especially when you're 15 and above and you've got that testosterone flowing through you, not just in games but in training as well. So yeah, 100%. It was still very competitive, still very much survival of the fittest, survival of the best, but it was done in a way that, for me, I think a lot of academies can and have learnt from, making it still making people still feel welcomed, even though there is that competition.
I mean, at the end of the day, a really interesting thing I heard was like, if you got scouted for a club, this is from like a scout in some kind of video I saw on YouTube. Can't quote it, unfortunately, but like, it's like, just because, let's say you got scouted for Brentford, just because it didn't work out at the trial at Brentford, doesn't mean you're not good enough. It just means Brentford are looking for something that you don't have, but what you have might be valuable at Millwall. Like, just random clubs. But
it's very true. And off the back of not getting signed at United, I got a trial at Reading. We played against Reading whilst I was at United, and I played well enough for Reading to go, if you don't sign him, we'll take him. So like, there's different opportunities that come from it. Without sounding too negative, most clubs, most academies at each age group will pinpoint 3 or 4 players and they think they're the ones that can make it pro. The rest that are there are good enough to be there, but they are not expecting them to come good enough to play at a high level. It's just how it works. So you might be of that level where they think you're part of the 10 or 12 that are not going to make it, but you're a good player. Or you might be part of that 3 or 4. If you're trialing and you're as good as those 10 or 12, they've already got that level. So are they going to sign you? No. And again, this is coming from my experience and perspective. Not necessarily true for every single person.
Of course. I heard, because it's not the first time I've heard something like this, so I've listened to a podcast with Alex Iwobi's dad, and he's categorized the academy life like that. You've got the top of the class, you've got the players that are there to, I'm sure I'm not quoting it 100% right, but you've got the top of the best players in the age group, in the club. You've got the players there that are, they're on the fringes, but they're good enough to be there, and then you've got the players making up the numbers.
There's a term that is, I think it's quite cutthroat, but I think it explains the cycle to people. I've heard people call those players shirt fillers, right? Not just making the numbers up, they're just there to wear a shirt. And I think it's a negative way to look at it, but often it's good to look at things through the lens of extremes, like extremely positive, extremely negative. Somewhere it's often in the middle, it's like the grey area. But if you're a shirt filler at an academy, you've still got an amazing opportunity to develop as a footballer, as an athlete. And in today's day and age, you can take so many social skills away from it as well. Yeah. So although that exists, I don't think it's a reason for academies to change necessarily, because it's just the fact of the matter. When you look at the difference in standard between a conference player and a championship player, they're not actually that far apart. They're not. Like, it's tier 2, tier 5, but most of those players are pretty similar. But it's because they've got a slight difference at that top end that it makes a large influence on where they're going to end up. I've not said that in the most clear way, but yeah, for an academy, and I think that looking back, I was probably in that middle tier at Bristol Rovers. At United, I was definitely in that lower tier.
Okay, interesting. So obviously, you played because I wanna kind of move away from the football journey and into like your transition into adulthood. So obviously, Bristol Rovers, sometime in between, Man United, Reading. So was Reading around the scholarship kind of age, or was that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Reading was like September to October, or maybe September to November.
Of the
in
same
under
year, or?
16s. Same year, yeah.
Okay.
So as soon as I didn't get offered the scholar at United, or didn't get offered a contract at United, I went to Reading like the week after. So I'd gone from being at this pre-season camp, like loads of new people. Littleshaw's like, I'm pretty sure it's the middle of nowhere as well. It's like 3-4 hours from Bristol. Going back to Bristol, getting dropped off with a host family in Reading, and because it was GCSE year, I spent like the weeks that I was there, I was at the training ground, just me, because the other players would be in school. So they'd get me training with under 18s, and then I'd be doing like schoolwork that my school had set me to do whilst I was there. But for like most of the day, it was just me sat by myself at the training ground, waiting around. Played a few games for Reading, played for their 18s as well as a 16-year-old. I did well. What screwed it, from my perspective and what they told me, was I went on an away day we played Reading on a Saturday, so we travelled up on the Friday, stayed in a hotel, played against Everton. I had a good game, and the coach was like, go home with your mum, spend a couple of days in Bristol, and then come back and we'll talk contracts. So I was like, wow, that's amazing. And I was like, I owe a lot to the club that helped me to get my enjoyment of football back. They're playing tomorrow, they've asked me to play. That can be my goodbye game. I went there, I got injured. So I've gone back to Reading after a couple of days, and they know full well that I didn't get injured in their game. So I've gone back and I'm injured, and it's one that's going to take a couple of months. So essentially took me in and said, don't think this is the place for you. Which in hindsight, if I was that good, they would have waited. So I was probably a shirt filler for the scholars if they'd have offered me it. But they decided not to go with me. And then from there, when I recovered, I went to Stoke. Stoke, after the first training session, pulled me in and said, are we going to have to pay for you? Because we're looking to offer you something. My stuff was stolen from the changing rooms. I was with, again, a host family, kind of by myself. She was lovely, but like elderly woman. I was walking to and from the training ground, working by myself, waiting for people to come for the evening training sessions. I kind of just fell out of love with it, to be honest with you. Went back to Bristol, got offered a scholar at Southampton, but chose not to take it. Went down the scholarship route for a private school, so I could play football every day, but I could also get some qualifications behind me, because I think I kind of knew that, like, if I was that good, these clubs would have like stuck by me. I'm there just to be a decent player. Most of those decent players that I've seen that are 2 years, 3 years above me drop out of football, and they've got they've not gone down the academic route, which was an option for me. I was very lucky, so I chose to do the scholarship, and in the holidays I went and played for Bristol Rovers 18s, so still kind of keeping my foot in the game, as well as the school stuff. And then at 19 I moved to the States on a scholarship to play football out there, which was a great experience. I'd highly recommend to anyone, if you can get an offer that makes it affordable for your family, or like me, if you need a full scholarship, if you can get offered that, it's a good level of football. You get some studies, you get to travel, experience new cultures, and the level's decent as well. So that was my next few years.
Oh, and I think the main thing I can take out of everything you've just said is transition, just constantly transitioning into a new club, transitioning into a new place, transitioning into a new environment, transitioning into a new host family. Like that's so much to deal with, and like I feel like the way you fell out of you said that you fell out of love with the game at that point is completely different to when you were younger, obviously, but I just find it interesting that it's just gone from, I'm not enjoying this, and there's just so much going on. I don't really want this life compared. Could correct me if I'm wrong at any point. Compared to, I was released and I was good enough to be there, and it was out of my control.
Yeah.
And I just find that contrast really, really interesting, especially because I'm sure we talked about the experiences that we live and how they toughen us up or how they don't, and then it's like the stuff that you went through at Bristol Rovers made you really get through that experience at Man United, Reading, Stoke, and this is what I'm gathering from our conversation. Of course, I'm not trying to act like I was there and do you know what I mean? But it's like it's just it was a lot more seamless. I feel like people that they not lose it, but get out of that environment can come out really. It can affect them really negatively. But I feel like it's like you done it on your own terms and you were ready and you made the best decision for yourself, which is very admirable. And again, I'm sure it wasn't just as straightforward as what of how I'm explaining and summarizing what I'm hearing from what you've said.
Yeah, it's easy to make things sound like they were simple decisions when I'm just going through them. But yeah, like if I look back, resilience and adaptability, they were probably the two main things I had to learn really quickly, and that served me really well. Something that is a massive positive for me going through the illness that I had and almost passing away is that I just have I have a massive gratefulness. I have huge gratitude, not a massive gratefulness. Huge gratitude for I'm still here, I'm still healthy, body and mind. So when I was 16, I was looking at the scholarship route. I think if I hadn't have gone through the illness, I would have gone for the scholarship. But because I'd been through stuff and I was like, there's more to life to a certain degree, it allowed me to make a decision that I think has been the better decision, to not just do football, but football and other life experiences. The learnings that I had at sixth form, most of them have gone now, but I went to a private school being a full scholarship kid with no money, but meeting from people from all walks of life. That school had like 60 something nationalities, people from same income as me. There was a lad in our team that came from the streets of Ghana playing street football. He was picked up by Right to Dream Academy. He had even less money than me, right? And there was people there that from billionaire families and everything in between. And what I experienced was I got to see through the looking glass and behind the curtain of I grew up and people would say if you have money you're a bit of a knob, or that you're arrogant. I met people from all walks of life, self-made, inherited money, no money, and I just saw how humans are humans. The money amplifies, but that experience for me showed me that there was also more to life than football. I think that was a recurring thing from when I got injured, when I got ill, up until I stopped playing at 19. There is a lot more to life than football, and unfortunately, this comes back to the identity piece. A reason that we see some mental health issues of people coming out of high performance academies at a young age is because life is football, and their identity is football. But because I got ill, it forced my identity to change. My hand was forced in a way that I didn't want, but it ended up helping me in
Sounds
some
like
ways.
a blessing in disguise somewhat in terms of your own personal development. I think that the most interesting thing I've heard is that the more you put into your identity, the more eggs you put into the basket of footballer or of businessman, and it goes back to what you said at the start. Like when it goes wrong, the more it's gonna hit you, and it goes back to bad business, bad day, me bad day, football bad day, me bad day.
Yeah.
And it's just really interesting.
There's something in that I haven't realised until recently, that the business owners that I've met, when things have gone wrong, there's like two camps, and I'm going to generalise here, which you shouldn't really do, or I shouldn't really do, but I'm going to. The ones that I've met that didn't absolutely... kill is the wrong word, but I'm going to use it because it is an emotive thing. Kill their identity was they had like a greater purpose outside of business, and the one that keeps coming up is religion. So when I've met founders that have failed in business or it's gone completely wrong, the thing that has allowed them to have identity outside of it and keep going and not be crumbled by that is they believe there's a greater purpose for them, or there's a greater purpose in life in general, and have got faith in something. I'm not saying it has to be religion, but let's take football as an example. If you're all in with football, but you've got a belief, a community, or some form of involvement outside of football, if football goes, you've still got one pillar left. And it's the same in business, same in life that I'm seeing. It's how can you find the community of people and something that you believe in or that you want to be a part of, and it might be working with a charity, starting a podcast, XYZ, that means that you've got more than one pillar in your life. So if one pillar crumbles or starts to shake, you've got something else there that is part of who you are. So that's one thing that I've noticed recently that I think is something that I can learn from personally. It doesn't have to be religion, but what's that other pillar connection? And that for now, it might even be me playing football again because I've got business, right? But I thought I'd put that out there as something that I've learned.
No, it's a brilliant example, and I think we are complicated beings, no matter what we do, and backgrounds and needs and reactions. And like the more we have to lean on, and the more we're able to compartmentalize ourselves, I think the healthier it is for ourselves. And as you said, religion is a key one, like for lots of people. But yeah, anything. So obviously you played your football, you played in America, you had these life experiences, you had your athletic experiences through the system. Let's talk about, okay, I need to double check this with you. Is EB or EBB?
Ebb.
EB,
Yep.
okay, I just want to double check. All right, so we have EB. What does EB stand for?
It's short for the ebb and flow of life and performance.
Okay.
So it's the company's like a year old, but like I said, like the seed was sown for me at 13, at 14. I'm not a psychologist, and I don't profess to be. And psychology is such an individual thing because, like you say, we all have our own life experiences, and we're a mix of nature and nurture. That when I saw Whoop, Aura, MyFitnessPal, Noom, Strava doing things where they use technology to make what used to be unaffordable or expensive in the one-to-one realm personalized, accessible, affordable through tech. So without Whoop, which I wear, you'd have to pay for a doctor to be with you 24/7. I can't afford that.
What exactly is Whoop?
So Whoop, this wearable here monitors through different biomarkers, so like your blood pressure and things like that, your stress, rest, recovery, and strain.
I thought it was a trendy bracelet.
I'll take that. But for me, something that we didn't touch upon, but a recurring theme throughout my life is obsession and overdoing things. So when I used to get injured in football, unless it was a tackle, it would be through me doing too much, overtraining, getting a muscle strain. And a couple of times in business, I've burnt out. And that's been self-caused because I've just been going and going and going and going and going. So this for me is like my accountability. It will tell me if I'm doing too much, which I need to build that within myself, but I rely on this.
You've got a bit of support, right? So
exactly.
That's what it is.
Support system. So like this here, before this existed, the information, the data and things like that it gives you, you'd have to have someone monitoring you all of the time. And likewise, the reason I bring that up is what we do is we take the knowledge and experience of my co-founders, Andrea and Sarah. They've worked with Team GB, Team USA, Arsenal, Southampton, tennis champions, Surrey Cricket. They've worked with the athletes and the coaches there for them to perform their best. If you were to try and work with them, that's hundreds of pounds an hour, thousands of pounds a day. hundreds of thousands of pounds to work with them for the year. So what we're doing is, in the same way that this is helping those that can't afford for a physician or a doctor to be sat next to 24/7, which most people can't, how can we take their experience and apply it into a way that's personalised and accessible for those that, like me when I was younger, can't afford a sports psychologist on an hourly, monthly, yearly basis, right? So that's what we started out with. This is the premise. And over the last year, we launched our prototype, which is a mobile app, to elite athletes just before the Olympics last year. Helped a couple of them to medal, which was great. And then we niched in on pro football, helping footballers and football clubs that can't afford to work with a sports psychologist, or, this is an interesting segue, don't want to use them because it's not private, and they value privacy when it comes to psychology. We give them access to the app. It's personalized coaching, AI driven. It's a buzzword. It's a hot topic at the moment, but what that means for us is informed intelligence. It's not artificial. It's Sarah and Andrew's experience that we apply through technology. So those players can get the coaching that help them to be more confident, more resilient, more consistent, for them to learn better, understand themselves better, set the right habits, those types of things. So that's Ebb in a nutshell.
And the source is really strong. Like, if you've got 50 years of experience in sports psychology between two professionals, and
Yeah.
and then a founder who's been through that cutthroat world and who's come out of it in a positive way, where where you're trying to reinforce that it's all right to not be a footballer.
Yeah.
So like, you've got like, obviously you talk about your sports psychologist, but like, with you and your experience, that's invaluable. I'm sure there's loads of people out there that will really benefit from speaking with you or hearing you secondhand from this.
I hope so.
And anything else you've been on or go on in the future.
100%. Like, I don't think this because of myself. I think this because of speaking to people like yourself that have pointed it out to me. Is the story that I have is not overly unique in terms of going down a pathway in terms of football, in terms of identity. Millions of kids in the UK and hundreds of millions worldwide go through trying to achieve their dream, whether it's in sports, music, acting, finance, whatever it might be, right? And there's something to be said about bouncing back, about creating the mental skills to give your best, but also to be able to deal with the negatives when they come. And transition's a really interesting one. So what I bring to the table is what you've mentioned. We've got an advisor. Matt Jarvis played for England, West Ham,
Not Matt Jarvis,
Wolves, etc. Right?
Yeah.
Matt's a great guy, and he's really passionate about helping people. Not many people know Matt was released at 16 by Millwall. He then
is he London boy?
He's a Guildford boy.
Okay.
So
I thought he was from the Midlands because he was at Wolves.
Common misconception.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and rightly so, right? He was released at 16, and he didn't think that he was going to get another club. Gillingham were the ones that said, come down. He was not keen at all. But the reason I bring that up is Matt had that. He's then had to travel all around. He's had pressure of thousands of people watching him. He's then spent over 2 years of his playing career injured on the sidelines, ostracised from his team, living away from his family, and then he's had to transition out of sport that has been his identity for 22 years. He's got skill sets that he hasn't had to tap into, that he didn't know existed, that he's been able to go into now. But the reason I say that is what we try to work with players and athletes and people with is like two different areas. It's the mental skills and toolbox to be able to perform better, but it's also the mental skills toolbox, the support, and sometimes the kick up the arse that's needed in life events. And that life event might be injury, getting released, transitioning out of sports. Though it's critical, and something that comes up quite often. I like this little snippet that someone shared with me. I've taken and I've ran with. The mind is the only consistent thing across everything. If you think of, let's take just sports as an example, there's the physicality. Can you build? Can you get fitter? There's the technical. there's the mental side, but without the mental side, you can't learn the skills. You can't understand what you need to eat, what you need to do in the gym, etc., etc. So the mind is the funnel that everything goes through. But before us, unless you had a psychologist, it's almost impossible to build it in a way that's individual to you. Podcasts are great, but if you're interviewing Matt Jarvis, he's going to talk about what works for him, not what works for you. And it's such an individual thing that we wanted to give people access to something that helps them as an individual, understands them as an individual, and not only helps them to perform better, but to feel better as well.
That's said it a few times, but mind blowing, because it's the passion of, it's obviously like I used this kind of analogy when I was having a meeting with someone for something else, which talk about off camera, about the passion is like what gets you started. It's what starts the car and gets you on the M6 to drive up. Do you know what I mean? But like, it will only get you to the into the motorway before like you have to do a lot more things to actually like,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? Like, and I just love how you've turned that passion into that experience and that passion of wanting to help others into something so positive that can really benefit people. And yeah, I just it's definitely something I'm looking forward to seeing develop and learning more about, and definitely something that I hope other athletes can really sink their teeth into.
That's really kind of you, man. Thank you. I'm a blessed person that I get to wake up every morning and try and take the negatives that have happened and use them as fuel to try and help other people. Before coming into to starting this, I worked jobs previously where I'd have to perform. And what I mean by that is like act. I'd have to act like I cared. I had to act like I was engaged, and that's quite draining.
Of course, a lot of micro decisions to make as well that have a massive toll on you.
Yeah.
Little micro tears, like.
I don't know about you, but if you've been in situations before where you're not being your authentic self, it's quite draining.
100%. 100%.
That I can do a job like having this conversation, it's not draining, it's energizing, because you're talking about something you're passionate about, you're just being yourself. And that's the work that I do now, and to see how what we're doing is helping people and to hear about it from them, it's like, wow, it's like fuel to the fire. Like, if we can help this person that's at this level of sport, but they're getting help not just with sport, with this, it's like, wow. How, imagine in a couple of years' time when we're not just focused on adults, but I can help young Sam at 13, or I can help Tarek at 14, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Like, that is just an incredible opportunity.
Yeah. I had something to... Okay, yeah, I remembered it now. This is going to sound like steep contrast, but it's just because it's what you said at the start about getting those compliments and that acknowledgement from other parents, coaches, when you were young. How do you compare that, getting that acknowledgement, compliments as a player, compared to getting those compliments and acknowledgement for something you created and that's being used to help other people?
Do you know what? The idea was mine, and what I've mainly done is create a team. I didn't build the app. I didn't design the app. I'm not the psychologist that delivers things through it. So when people compliment the app, it's beyond my idea now. They're not complimenting me. I feel like they're complimenting the team. In the early days, when people are like, that's a great idea, yeah, it would be a little bit self-satisfactory. Like, oh, my idea is good, it's getting validation. But loads of people have good ideas. It's about, can you execute on those? And I feel like we've built a team now of people that are so engaged in our mission and that have either expertise or they're young, hungry people that believe in what we're doing and they're learning on the journey, that when a football club says something that's great, or a footballer or whoever it may be, an investor, that for me is more validation that I've picked the right people, rather than I've done the right, rather than I'm doing a great thing, because I don't build the product. Really, I'm just the guy that helps people. Like, I founded the business, which means that if there's a problem in the business, it's my job to make sure that that problem doesn't exist, so that it's not in the way of our team. That's my main job now, so that they can do what they're paid to do and why they're there. So when the compliments come in, to be completely honest with you, I share them with the team straight away and we celebrate as a team, because they're not complimenting me anymore. It's gone beyond my ideas. It's bigger than me now. I just love the fact that we have this thing that, when I first had the idea, I was like, am I crazy? Is it just me that wants this, or do other people want it? Along the journey up until now, there's been people that have joined that at the start weren't paid. And like I said, that my psychologist co-founders could earn a shit ton of money with that time that they've put into us before we saw any sort of type of investment and outcome. So I think that along the journey, there's been like validation points that after the first couple, they go from validating me to something that's way bigger than me, and that comes back to being part of a team
from day one. And I think the best part about that, though, is even though it's bigger than you, it's the fact you were able to start something that has become bigger than you. So I think that's a really big thing to be able to say you've done, and to say that you're doing and will continue to do as you grow the brand and you come up with new innovative ways to support others, which I'm sure I'm sure you and your team will. Like,
I'm confident in that, because like the team, especially in the areas that they look at, they're brilliant. And what I'm really passionate about is hiring people that are good people but highly intelligent. Like, if I'm the smartest person in the room, then we're not going very far. So like, how can I get the people, like someone that we've just hired, experienced psychologist, she's worked with like in and around technology, but she's just graduated from she's self-funded a master's in neuroscience from King's with a focus in AI. That's a top 5% of intelligence type of person, but we didn't just hire her because she's intelligent. She's such a good person as well, and really purpose driven. Like, if we keep on getting those people, and we're very lucky that they're attracted to our business because there is a purpose, we're helping people. And when we talk about earlier, something that came up as a thought was, there's a big switch over the last 10-15 years where if you speak to most people now, they're looking for not to be in a big business. They want to be maybe in a smaller business where they have a part to play. They feel like they're doing something, they're turning the cogs, not just the pencil pusher, so to speak. We're a very lucky company in which people can resonate with our purpose, helping people to perform and feel their best. So as long as we keep not using that, but as long as we keep finding people that are highly intelligent, highly skilled, that can come onto us, I don't know where this goes. Like, it's beyond me now. Like I said, like the people that are bringing in and having ideas are things that I could never think of, but they're part of this mission.
So is there any way that any following, any socials, any website that people can have access to if they wanted to find out more about Ebb and what you do, and how they can access that support if that's what they feel they needed?
Yeah, so we're in a bit of a counterintuitive place at the moment where, because we're early stage and we want to get this right, not just be a one-size-fits-all, we're working with a very small number of people at the moment. I say small, it's like hundreds of footballers, a couple of football clubs, etc. We've got a wait list, so we've got a little website, joinebb.com. We're going to be much more active on socials, because up until recently we had an even smaller team. We raised a good amount of investment. So some of our footballers came on as investors, other people that are experienced investors came on board, etc. That now allows us to grow, and as part of that growth, we want to share as much value as we can outside of the app for free for people. So what people can expect is some more stuff on our website, some more stuff on socials that are taking the value and experience from Matt, from me, from our psychologists, putting it out there for free. And then in future, we'll open out that wait list so that it's not just a small number of people that we're working with, and that we can let this thing grow organically. But I need to start getting more active on socials. And now that we've hired more people, I've got a bit more time to do that, because I think it will be valuable to share the journey. Because when I first started this, not many people were helping people go from 0 to 1. If I can just help one person by sharing how I did it and where I fucked up a bit as well, I can swear on here. Yeah. I think that's useful. So mine is eb.sam on Instagram. I haven't posted for a while, but this is the kick up the arse that I need to start posting again. And yeah, like, we're on LinkedIn. We've got the website. If there are people that listen to this that work in and around that creative content brand piece, that what we're talking about resonates with them, we are going to be looking to bring people on for those roles. So feel free for people to reach out to me if they feel like they could add value. But yeah, it's something that we need to get better at.
Well, hopefully that's the start, and by the time this comes out, it's in full swing. So just before we wrap things up, I start with a bit of reflection, I end with a bit of reflection. So what have you learned today, this afternoon, this time we've had together? What have you learned from this conversation we've had? What have you learned? What have you gained? However you want to...
There's some stuff that you pointed out of like commonalities between my experiences that I hadn't really put together.
Okay.
And also the contrast as well of... I feel like when you're in autopilot and you're in first person mode, right, living your own life, you can build a narrative that when you share your experiences with other people that haven't got that inner narrative that you've got, they look at it through their perspective and shine their lens on it. And I think you've done that today in a way that I've taken a couple of things of like, wow, I didn't put those two things together. That's been really useful for me.
I'm glad.
But also, this is my third podcast, first for a few months. And just building, I'd say on the other two, because it was more new, I was more nervous, and I probably didn't give a true reflection of myself. Like, I'd be internally beating myself up if I was stuttering or whatever. Whereas like today, I do have a bit of a stutter every now and again, or I'm not trying to like think my answers through too much. I'm trying to be authentic. So I've learned that giving the space and giving the opportunity through good conversation, it's a good learning experience.
I appreciate that. I'm really glad that I know it wasn't a direct compliment, but I'll take it. I'm glad that you were able to feel comfortable and gain that value from speaking with me today.
Yeah.
But Sam, thank you so much for coming on. It was so great to hear your story, your journey, and your perspective, and I'm looking forward to seeing what's to come. So yeah, this has been me, T, Life in Sport, Liz Podcast, and signing out. Like, subscribe, comment, etc. Follow on the socials. Follow Sam on the socials. And yeah, big love, people. See you soon, and can't wait to keep doing what we're doing.